I've worked homicide long enough to know that most murders aren't loud. They don't come with broken glass, overturned furniture, or screaming neighbors. Most murders are quiet, planned, practiced, and delivered by someone trusted. The Holt case was one of those murders. I got the call at 3:32 a.m., male, 38, unresponsive, no signs of trauma. The dispatcher said the wife sounded hysterical. I've heard real hysteria before. What she played on that call wasn't hysteria, it was theater. But I didn't say anything. You don't accuse a widow before you see the body. When I arrived at 18 Eaglewood Circle, rain was still clinging to the windows. A paramedic waved me in. "Wife found him cold, detective," he said. "No forced entry, no struggle." Vanessa Holt sat on the edge of the bed, hands over her face. Her robe was neatly tied, hair a little messy, but not messy enough to match the broken sobs she was making. Then I saw Greg Holt, lying peacefully on the bed like he'd drifted off after a long shift. But death doesn't make people look peaceful. It stiffens them. It twists faces. It creates chaos in the body. Greg looked arranged. I stepped closer. His lips had a faint chemical sweetness, one you only notice if you've smelled enough poison cases. His fingers were slightly blue. No vomiting, no scratches on the sheets. A healthy man doesn't die in silence. I looked at Vanessa. Only her left cheek was wet with tears. A natural cry doesn't choose one side. "Mrs. Holt," I said softly, "when was the last time you saw your husband alive?" She swallowed. "He went to sleep around 10:30. I woke up, and he was cold. I don't know what happened." Her voice cracked at the right moments, but the pitch didn't match her breathing. Manufactured grief. I've seen it too many times. "Full toxicology," I told forensics, "and bagged the wineglass on the nightstand." Vanessa heard me. Her shoulders stiffened. Not the reaction of someone confident in innocence. I left the room, but I already knew something. Greg Holt didn't die naturally, and his wife wasn't telling me everything. When I went through their background, the Holts looked like a brochure couple. White picket fence, stable income, gym-going wife, holiday photos that looked staged for print. But behind neat homes hide messy truths. Greg's phone had regular patterns, clients, workplace, occasional messages to Vanessa. But Vanessa's phone? That thing was ringing more than a stockbroker's on a crash day. And one number stood out, saved as Mia Jim, called 340 times in 4 months. I cross-checked. Mia wasn't a woman. It was Ethan Ward, age 29, Vanessa's gym trainer. Attractive, broke, very active on social media, too active for someone with a dying bank account. Affairs aren't new to me. Affairs mixed with sudden death, that's motive. But the real alarm bell wasn't the calls. It was what Vanessa searched on Google. Poison that looks like a heart attack. Ethylene glycol taste in wine. How long does antifreeze take to kill someone? People Google their curiosity. Killers Google their plan. I drove back to the Holt house that afternoon. Vanessa greeted me with tired eyes. Real or fake, I couldn't tell yet. I asked her to walk me through the previous night. She recited the timeline like a rehearsed monologue. Dinner at 7:30. He seemed tired. He fell asleep around 10:45. I stayed up reading. I came to bed around midnight. When I woke, he was cold. "What book were you reading?" I asked casually. She froze. I don't remember." Nobody forgets the book they read the night their husband died, but I didn't challenge her. Not yet. "Mrs. Holt, do you know a man named Ethan Ward?" Her eyes flashed panic for a fraction of a second, and that one slip told me more than any confession. He's just my trainer," she said. "Your trainer? You spoke to him 340 times." She opened her mouth, then closed it. No answer. I let the silence cook her for a moment. Silence tells me more than words. "We'll speak again," I said, heading for the door. Her breath shook the moment I stepped out. She thought she hid it, but I heard. Fear is louder than grief. The autopsy came back 2 days later. Cause of death, ethylene glycol poisoning. A sweet-tasting, odorless, colorless chemical, antifreeze. Mixed into wine or juice, the victim never notices. The poisoning matches a slow, peaceful-looking death. Exact ingestion window, 7:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., right during dinner with Vanessa. She didn't just kill her husband. She planned it, studied it, timed it. I now had proof Greg didn't die naturally, but I needed the how, the why, and the partner, because killers like Vanessa rarely work alone. So I visited the gym where Ethan trained. He recognized me immediately, the kind of man who panics before the interrogation even starts. "Detective, I heard about Greg. Terrible tragedy." I didn't sit. I didn't smile. "How long have you been sleeping with Vanessa?" He blinked too rapidly. "We're just friends." I slid a folder onto the desk, hotel receipts, parking lot CCTV, late-night call logs. He went pale. Okay, look, we're close, but don't put this on me. I didn't touch Greg." His foot tapped uncontrollably. People who are innocent stay still. People who are hiding something bounce like tennis balls. "Why did Vanessa send you $14,000 last month?" He choked on his breath. That was personal." "Personal? Murder is the most personal thing in the world. Ethan wasn't the mastermind. He wasn't smart enough, but he knew something, and fear was already peeling him open." "Ethan," I said quietly, "Vanessa told me everything." That was a lie, but a strategic one. He stiffened. What? She blamed me?" I didn't answer. His reaction was answer enough. "She said you helped her," I said softly. He broke instantly. "No, she did it. She poisoned him. She told me Greg wouldn't be a problem soon. There it was, the first crack. Guilt wasn't proven yet, but partnership was. And partnership in murder is a dangerous thread. If you pull it right, the whole truth unravels." I stood up. "Thank you, Ethan. We're not done." He tried to speak, but I had what I needed. The wife was the planner, the boyfriend was the tool, and the husband was the target. But the full truth, and the real twist in this case, was still waiting in the shadows. I left Ethan still shaking in that fluorescent-lit interrogation room. When a man starts talking to save himself, what he leaves out is as important as what he says. Ethan had fingered Vanessa as the one who mixed the poison. He'd claimed ignorance, fear, manipulation. It fit the pattern. Young lover, older spouse, money flowing like a confession. But confessions from scared men often come pre-packaged with the hope of a plea bargain. I had to be careful. I could smell desperation in his words. Back at the Holt house, I requested a full sweep of the kitchen and trash, went through the wine decanter, and asked the lab for a special look. Trace residues on cutlery, micro-scrapings from the cork, and checks on any containers that could hold ethylene glycol. I also had the bank pull every transfer, every ATM withdrawal, and tracked timestamps to see when the $14,000 left Vanessa's account and where it landed. The financial paper trail is often the loudest evidence in a quiet murder. There were two things that told me the rest of the story before any suspect did. First, the credit card receipt for that night's grocery run. Vanessa bought a 12-bottle case of a cheap white wine brand and a sports electrolyte mix. Second, smartphone metadata placed Vanessa's phone in the kitchen between 7:40 and 8:05 p.m., the time I believed the poison was delivered into the wine. It's a small thing. GPS accuracy isn't perfect, but combined with the autopsy window, the receipts, and Ethan's admission that he had been at the house that night, it pointed very clearly. I scheduled another sit-down with Vanessa. This time the room was colder. She wasn't the woman on the 911 tape. This Vanessa wore composure like armor. Her eyes were calmer, but there was a brittle edge beneath that calm. I wanted to see whether she would be surprised by the receipts, the GPS pings, the transfer confirmations. She wasn't. "Mrs. Holt," I said, setting the evidence on the table like a surgeon placing instruments. "Your phone was in the kitchen at 7:50 p.m. You bought a case of wine at 6:45. The wine decanter has trace ethylene glycol on it, and you transferred $14,000 to Ethan Ward last month." She scanned the documents with a measured breath, then looked at me the way someone judges the ends of a math problem. "You're making a lot of assumptions, detective," she said. "Not assumptions. Facts," I replied. Where did the $14,000 come from? Her jaw moved, a small tick. It was a loan, she said. He needed help. I helped. Did you put anything in Greg's drink that night? I asked. Vanessa's face didn't twitch, but her fingers gripped the chair. No, she said, I would never. You Googled antifreeze, I interrupted. You searched for poisons that mimic heart attacks. Your browser history shows it. You were looking for a way to make death look like natural causes. Her eyes went hard then, not fear, but calculation. Everyone searches weird things, she said. I was researching for a client. I teach fitness. Sometimes people ask about toxins. It was a weak defense. You can defend strange searches, but you can't explain the traces on a decanter and the timing of a phone in the kitchen. I pushed a little harder, then pivoted to the one place she couldn't script. Empathy. Why would you do this, Vanessa? What did Greg do that made you think that you had no other way? She laughed softly, a sound that had no humor. You think this is simple? You think I wanted to do this? Greg wasn't cruel. He was boring. He was practical. He lectured me about money, about being sensible. He mocked my hours at the gym. He made me feel small. Ethan made me feel alive. I didn't plan his murder out of malice. I planned it to survive. The survival line is common. The tone is designed to win juries. I listened. I had to let confession come on her terms, or I'd get nothing but carefully chosen rage. Vanessa, I said, Ethan says you told him Greg wouldn't be a problem soon. Her expression flickered, just for a second. I didn't tell him to kill Greg, she said. I only told him we could be free. If Greg were gone, we could start over. So you gave him money, I said, to help him leave. But you mixed poison. Her shoulders slumped. The armor cracked. You don't remember everything because the mind hides things until it's forced to feel them. She closed her eyes. I thought it would be quick. I thought he would sleep and wake up somewhere else. I thought... She stopped. That was the moment where truth bleeds, the space between thought and memory, the sigh where justification meets guilt. We spent hours peeling the night apart. I played back CCTV from the street. Vanessa's car was in the driveway until well past 9. Her smartwatch paired with the kitchen speaker sent a ping at 7:49 p.m. The wine bottle cap had micro-residues consistent with ethylene glycol. Trace elements showed up on the rim of the decanter and a faint smear under Vanessa's fingernail when her hands were swabbed, maybe from cleaning. The lab confirmed the ethylene glycol matched the brand of antifreeze sold at a local hardware store where Vanessa had paid in cash 3 days prior. It was a tidy chain, the strands tied together, purchase, presence, contact, transfer, motive. And yet, there was a final loose thread. Ethan. He'd confessed fear, but not intent. He'd admitted B.